Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Hope everybody is well, feeling great today. This is your boy Tone Duncan. Today, I have the privilege of bringing you another Sunday conversation. Sunday conversations are about our spiritual path, about our spiritual truth. It's about coming together no matter what our particular denomination or religious perspective is. It's really specifically about allowing ourselves access into our truth. Sunday conversation brings people together that would otherwise have a hard time connecting and seeing what's really real. Sunday conversation gives us a chance to talk to each other about some things that we don't really find a chance to put into our day-to-day conversation. So I thank you for this opportunity, but I want you to I want you to comment, and I want you to share. So take some moments out really quick. I want you to go to Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers is TruthSeekers. I want you to go over to Truth Seekers if you don't mind. Do that for me right now. And I want you to connect, like, and join. Right there to Truth Seekers. Thank you so much, y'all. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I want you guys to join my private page, Truth Seekers. That's the professional page. The cool thing about the professional page is if you jump in and join, if you become a part of our professional page, it allows me to be able to get this out to more people. To get this content out to more people means that we'll be able to, as a collective, share this conversation with as many people as we possibly can. I want to start this off with a special shout out to my beautiful wife. I want to say what's happening to all my Facebook friends, all my Insta friends, all my YouTube friends. It is a pleasure. Lola, Dion, Rob, Enrique, so many of you are a part of what's going on right here, and I am thankful, I am privileged, I am honored. But most specifically, I want you to join the Truth Seekers page. That's TruthSeekers. Join that page right now. That's the professional page. If you can do me that favor, if you can jump onto that page for me and start to watch it on that page, that really allows me to be able to watch this, to be able to grow our conversation, and to become a bigger part of the main stage. Today, what I want to talk to you about is about 7 principles, y'all. 7 principles to really edifying your spiritual path, to really getting a chance to grow outside of the norm, to being able to celebrate our divinity, our spiritual essence. The thing that makes you, you, is not your ego. It's not your belief systems of who you are. It's about your spiritual design. It's about the fact that you are created first as a spirit, and we were designed to dwell on this physical platform we call Earth. But before you were anything Earth, you were 100% spirit. And we must get our awareness back, because spiritual truth is not about our physical awareness. It's about something deeper. So thank you so much. The very first thing that I want to talk to you about is why we go on this path for spiritual enlightenment. Too many of us have found ourselves at odds with what's really happening. Too many of us have found ourselves in confusion of what purpose truly means. We have found ourselves to be disconnected and not a part of the reality that is And that reality is not, I say this, y'all, that reality is not physical. It's deeper than that. You know, I talk to people all the time about the difference between inspiration and motivation. You know, you can be motivated to do something you are not inspired to do, but if you're inspired to do something, you need no motivation. We are a society that is constantly trying to increase our motivation because it doesn't connect with our inspirations. And our inspirations are the spiritual connection that we have to the life we live and the purpose we were designed for. Some of us know what I mean when I say this. I have been motivated to do things I was not inspired to do because inspiration comes from a divine purpose. And our purpose has to get outside of this thing we think is reality. You know, when you understand what it means to be an inspired being, you move away from the need for motivation because you're motivated to be inspirational. You are motivated to be a part of truth. You are motivated to be the reality that is. Cortez, my man, says you can't hear me, so I'm trying to turn up the volume. Y'all let me know if y'all hear me. Hey, can I get a heart? Can I get a like? Can I get a love? If you can hear me, y'all, let me know. Again, thank you so very much for checking in. I'd love for you guys to go over to my favorite. Watch this here real quick. I'd love for you guys to go over to my favorite station of all of them, and that is Truth Seekers on Facebook. Let me know if you can hear me, y'all. Special like, special love, special shout out. Thank you so much, Cortez. Hopefully everybody hears me well. So here's what I want to talk to you about first and foremost. The very first principle that we need to focus in on is the principle of gratitude. Gratitude is a particular mindset that we really have to understand. So before we go any further, before we get any deeper, let's just talk simply about gratitude. You know, there was once a deep feeling of resentment I had because so many other people seem to have so much more. You know, I grew up like so many of you. I grew up without what so many other people seem to have so much of. I was poor. You know, my family didn't have all the things, and I was very aware of how poor I was. I was very aware of all the things I didn't have. You know, I once complained so much. I once was so angry because I had the ugliest shoes in the whole classroom. I'll never forget this feeling, this disappointment, this anger. I didn't have nice shoes. I would walk down the street and look at other people's shoes and wonder, why don't I have nice Jordans like them? You know, nice Zodiacs like them, all the different shoes when I was a kid. And I didn't have them, y'all. And then one day, while I was feeling sorry for myself, I walked past a man with no feet. He had no feet, but he was smiling. You know, I later heard an actual saying that said I was mad that I didn't have good shoes until I walked past a man with no feet. And I swear to you, I lived that. I actually experienced that. And today I'm telling you that we too often have an attitude that's based on a fake expectation of what life is supposed to yield. We don't have the gratitude we need because we are constantly being bombarded with a belief that we are supposed to be graciously thankful for the things we have. But that's not gratitude. No, that's not gratitude at all. See, gratitude is a mindset. Gratitude is an attitude of understanding every gift you could possibly have is based on the spirit. It's not based on the earthly plane. See, the attitude of gratitude comes when you realize that if you have anything, you have enough because you had everything you needed before you were aware of all the things that you see. See, when you can appreciate all of the deep connections, all of the true thankfulness for the things that you cannot accumulate on earth, when you understand that you are divinely created, you are an inspiration based on the fulfillment of a spiritual truth. You are a piece of the divine in every single step you take. When you get an awareness that your wealth, your resources, your stockpile of gold and wealth come from your spiritual self, come from the truth of who you are at the divine level, we become a people of gratitude. But it steps us away from a belief that we should be gracious in accepting the things we have on earth, when the reality is our gratitude comes from all of the spiritual gifts that we get to know more about when we step away from the physical plane. I'll never forget that I had a restaurant, y'all. I'll never forget this. And this restaurant, I was looking for a really good worker. I was looking for somebody who was really going to give some effort. I had a new restaurant. I wanted people to enjoy my food. I wanted them to see that we were hospitable people. We were clean. We were friendly. We were outgoing. But most importantly, I wanted people to see we were hardworking, professional, and we took the service of providing food seriously. Well, I had met a guy, and after I worked with him for about an hour or 2 hours, I saw a zeal about him. I saw a passion. I said, this is the kind of guy that I want to have working at my restaurant. So, I gave this guy the job. I said, hey, today was a good day. I like what you've done, and I want you to come back. You work hard, and you seem to really, really care about what you do. Well, after a week or so, I realized this guy was always there. Like, he was always there before me. He was always around. And I was trying to find out what this could possibly be, y'all. I was trying to find out how. And then somebody told me, watch this, y'all. Somebody told me that this guy, that's going to blow your mind. This guy was living on my roof of the restaurant. I couldn't believe it at first. I got a neighbor who lived, and he said, hey, I saw your restaurant from my back porch here, and I see there's a guy living on top of your restaurant. Did you know that? I'm like, no, I didn't have a clue. I had no idea. So I had to go and, look for myself. So I one day sneak around, I look up there, and lo and behold, the man is up there. So I didn't want to say anything. I waited until I saw him the next day, and I said to him, I said, where do you live? Where do you live? And he said to me, Tony, I'm homeless. I said, you put down on your application that you lived over here, and blah, blah, blah. And he says, well, that's where a family member of mine lives at, and that's where I get my mail, but I'm homeless right now. I said, well, if I can be more honest with you and upfront, I've heard you actually are sleeping on the roof. He said to me, Tony, there's only one thing that I think about when it comes to sleeping. And that is, I'm petrified of rats, Tony. See, if I can just find a place that doesn't have rats, I'll be okay for the night. And I'll tell you the truth, Tony, your roof doesn't have rats. You guys do such a good job with pest control, and rats don't really like to climb too high. And so I decided that in order to make sure that I was there on time for work, I should sleep on the roof, and I hope I didn't mess things up for my job. I need a job so bad. You know, I'm going to tell you something that blew my mind is that this man wasn't worried about the rain. This man wasn't worried about whether or not he had security and safety. He wasn't worried about whether he had shelter from the cold. The man had one worry, and that was his fear of rats. See, sometimes we are so stuck in our pursuit of the things that we should be gracious for, so things that we should be happy for, but we don't understand that gratitude is an attitude when you are thankful that the richness you are bestowed upon happened before you had an earthly material gain. See, this man, I saw him smiling, but every single day he'd go live somewhere that was not his home. He had a zeal, he had a work ethic, he had a passion for life, but he wasn't living a life that somebody would be gracious to have. I ask you right now, do you understand that gratitude is an attitude that one has when they see that they are spiritually divine, that they are inclined to be what they can't even imagine themselves being because of the spiritual being they are. Before they ever knew themselves, they had the wealth of the Spirit inside of them. See, this is the principle of gratitude. In order for us to have gratitude, we have to move away from annoyance, this impatience, this resentment, this anger, this indignation, this thing that comes about us because we are not thankful for the Spirit that governs and guides us all. I'm saying to you today that one of the very first focuses on spiritual enlightenment is our ability to have gratitude for our day-to-day existence. When you realize you are a spiritual being, processing some earthly things, it's so much more easy to be thankful for that spiritual indwellment and not to focus so much on whatever this whole thing called life's accomplishments and the fruits of one's physical realm seem to put on us. See, but this brings us to being humble. You know, one of the hardest words I ever had to deal with was humility. Humility, y'all, was a tough word for me. I don't know about you, but the word humility sounds too much like humiliate. I sound like somebody who once came to me and said to me, he said, you know, Tone, I can't be somebody who has humility because I don't want to be somebody who's below somebody else. I don't want to be seen as inferior to other people. I don't believe that I have to be something like that. I am equal to everyone else. And it brings me to the thought that we have a hard time utilizing this word called humility because society has put us into a belief system that you have to one-up somebody else. You have to be better than your competition. You have to be greater than the one trying to compete with you because we are in such a superficial world. We're in such a fake place that we can't experience the happiness of humility. Humility is the freedom, watch this, the freedom from pride. It's the freedom from arrogance. It's the quality, the state of being humble. Too many of us, we don't understand humility. We don't understand what it means to be humble because we too often think that we are judged by our success. But when you are humble, you realize it's not about judgment. You realize that in order for you to be humble, you have to be away from your pride. See, because it's within your ego, and I'll say this to you really simple, it's within your ego that we find this inability to be humble. Our humility and our ego are constantly at odds with each other. Because your ego is your belief system that you are somehow supposed to be successful. You are somehow supposed to be a leader. You're somehow supposed to be some greatness that moves you and elevates you away from the masses. So when we think about this, we think, well, then how can I then be somebody who is humble and sees equality with all others? See, our inability to be humble creates a pride and arrogance that makes us fault finders. Too often you will see yourselves finding faults in others. You find faults in everything because we are a fault-finding people. Pride does that to you. See, the spiritually proud person shows that their pride is within the inner connections, the dwellings, not within the mistakes, not within the belief that somehow you're supposed to be perfect. See, our spiritual truth, first and foremost, is that our reality is that we are not our mistakes. We are not our life experiences. We are not our success. We must be, as my favorite person in the whole wide world, Nisi says, we must be free from arrogance. Because it's within that arrogance that we start to see the real subtleties of our problems. Our harshness in our spirit comes from our superficiality. Our superficiality, believe it or not, comes from our defensiveness. I said defensiveness because we don't realize how much of our actions are dictated by our own personal fears based on negative belief systems, based on an ego that sees our limitations and misunderstands these things to be our only choices in making it through our lives. But see, when we understand defensiveness is based on a belief system, then we can scrutinize these beliefs and see that these are all hand-me-downs. These are things that somebody else has told us. These are beliefs that came about because we had never freed ourselves from our own arrogance. And it had become defensive. And now we defend ourselves because our presumption is that somehow we are better than somebody else. We must move away from this stuff because it's a desperation for attention. We need attention. We need to feel validated by others. That's all the ego is. See, when we move away from that and we become more humble, when we can live within the humility of knowing that we are not the physical plane we travail on, but rather we are truth in our essence, and our experiences are not us, but we experience things. This is tough because so much of us, so much of our society, so much of our pain is based on the things that we've experienced because somebody somehow told you you are your experience. So we are not able to connect with each other because we don't experience what the other person experiences. So we end up neglecting those and focusing only on our own experiences. This is not the way that life is supposed to be. This is one of the spiritual principles that we have to set in place for our own happiness. The principle of humility is the ability for us to walk away from the ego and step into, see, there's only two things, y'all. You've got the ego and you've got the spirit. Now, the ego will tell you that it is all spirit, but the spirit will show you that it's only ego. And the more we move away from our ego, the more we're into our humility. The more we move into our ego, the less we're gracious about, the more we're controlling about, the more we're in our beliefs that are false, and the less we're into our humility, which is truth. We must understand the principles of humility. We must understand that for us, we got to get away from this need to prove. Always proving that we're richer, proving that we're smarter, proving that we're wiser, more clever. I mean, I don't know about you, but every day I feel this responsibility, this need to constantly feel like I've done one more thing than somebody else. I've worked harder than other people. I've tried more than the next person. I've given more effort than somebody else. It is this belief system that kills our humility, this need to outdo everybody else, this striving for somehow becoming better than our fellow person. It's all foolishness, y'all. It isn't real. See, the reality is that as we add more humility to our life, the greater our spiritual connection, our spiritual purpose, our spiritual focus allows us to govern and navigate through this thing we call life. See, it's a principle of optimism. You know, so many of us, we think that optimism is a belief that tomorrow is going to be better than today. But see, real optimism is our awareness that there is no such thing as a bad day. There are bad circumstances in a great day, but the great day is a mindset when one understands the spiritual truth of what you have come from, the spiritual truth about why you are here, the spiritual truth about understanding that we go through problems in life, but the problems are not us. The life is just a learning experience. Too many of us are caught up in the day-to-day actions of this life and not realizing that the real life is the spirit that's inside of us that governs and navigates us through all of our experiences. See, we need to move away from this thought that optimism is a chance for another day to be more financially beneficial. Optimism means that tomorrow you'll find that love of your life. Optimism is tomorrow you'll get the better job. Optimism is tomorrow your supervisor will recognize the amount of hard work you put in. Optimism is one day your kids will clean up the house and say thank you for being the wonderful parent that you are. Optimism is one day your coworker will say, hey, you are the best person a man could ever work with. You are the best person that a person can ever rely on for a job to be done. That is not the optimism of truth. See, the optimism of truth is waking up every single morning knowing that this is the greatest day possible, because no matter what hardships, what benefits, what lessons learned, the spirit in me is strong and cannot be defeated. The spirit in me is powerful and will not subside to any form of fake and untrue feelings that I am not part of the divine greatness. See, we need to look at ourselves and start to recognize the divine power that we are built from. We have to move away from this belief, and some of y'all know what I'm talking about. This belief that God blesses or curses us with the amount of good things that happen in our day. These things are not real. What's real is that we are blessed with the bountiful divine spirit, and that as we move away from a belief that we are physical beings and into the awareness that we are spiritual beings, we become more aware that optimism is realizing that you are in the divine greatness in every moment of your day. See, we think somehow that good things are what optimism brings, but we don't understand that the bad things that we call bad are the optimism perspectives that we have in enduring the issues that we're going through. But if we have great optimism, we see the vision of truth in all of the hardships of the day. I'm telling you, step away from this belief that optimism is a belief that somehow you will benefit because benefit and optimism have nothing to do with each other. Optimism is knowing that you benefit regardless. You are divine. You are a person of great substance because of your eternal markers of creation. You know, one of the things that I have to talk to you guys about is the principle of generosity. Because once you understand you are not the physical things you accumulate, once you understand you are not this being that is rewarded or cursed on earth, once you understand that you are a divine creation navigating on an earthly plane, once you get this, our generosity changes. See, once you understand that the only power there is the power of love, and that all the other energies are just crippling. When you realize that generosity is not giving somebody $1 when they're homeless and looking like they need $1, but genuinely giving your heart to the matter. Doing the things you were built to do, doing the things you were created for, doing the things that you were spiritually gifted with the ability to do. This is what it means to be generous, because generosity is allowing your spiritual gifts to indwell in your environment, to let go of your defense that stops you from being compassionate, but actually allows you to be powerful in your essence. Too many of us are looking for leaders, but we don't understand we were spiritually put here to lead in the area of our gifts. We have to understand that generosity is an action of the heart, not an action of the mind. You'll never understand generosity when you think somehow it has something to do with a gift that you had given. No, that's not what it means. See, generosity is giving of your spirit, of giving of your concern, of giving of your compassion, of giving of your spiritual gifts. See, too often we take the word generosity and we apply it to our capitalism. No, see, you and I both know that you may not have the capitalism to be generous, but you have the immense gifts of the Spirit. That is what we need more desperately. See, I'm trying to tell you today that generosity is a principle for spiritual growth, but it has nothing to do with what you choose to give somebody in the physical world. It's about your spiritual, it's about your emotional, it's about your compassion, about your belief that we have a responsibility to each other, which is the same responsibility we have to the divine, which is the same responsibility that we have to ourselves. When you give of your spirit, it's a threefold blessing. You give homage to the divine. You give your graciousness to your people. And you give your purpose to yourself. Understanding generosity. They've done studies on people who are generous. They live more happy. They live more abundant. They live more purposefully. We need to realize this, because we struggle. We've looked at religion and we've broken it down to just being a money grab. We've looked at all of the different ways that spiritual people are exploiting us. And we ask ourselves, what can we actually do to connect us with our truth? But it's all in generosity, y'all. And generosity is a spiritual thing. I pray that you find your spiritual generosity. And I pray that you find your purpose in that spiritual generosity. You know, because this is the reality. We find our purpose when we let go of our own needs and focus more into the needs of our community. We don't have to go and do some grand thing. You know, we're always constantly looking to do some grand, amazing thing. I mean, we've had icons in our history, and we think that if it's not iconic, it's not necessary. It's not what we could have given. We don't understand the power of day-to-day love to our fellow neighbor. Yes, we have a responsibility. We have a mission. We have a creative purpose to give. But one of the greatest gifts you can give is forgiveness. You know, the fifth principle of spiritual enlightenment is the ability to give forgiveness. See, when you can give forgiveness, I'll give you an example. Have you ever had a situation happen where somehow, some way, you were looked at as doing something wrong? I mean, you were looked at as doing something wrong. You know you didn't do it. You know that if you did it, you didn't do it intentionally, or you flat out just feel like this is wrong. I'm a good person. I'm being accused of doing something bad. I'm being miscalculated as a bad person. So what do? You call up somebody, call a friend. You call a friend and you tell a friend, you say, look, this is what's going on right now. You know, for whatever reason I'm being, purported, I'm being looked at. I'm trying to be sold to other people as this bad person when in the actuality, I haven't done anything wrong. You're on the phone. Look, can't you hear me? These are my pains. Tell me you understand that I'm right. You know, even though the person you are talking to had nothing to do with the actual conviction, had nothing to do with the belief that something negative happened, but they listened to you. And they said, you know what? That wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You know, you made a mistake on this or that, or man, you didn't make any mistakes. I don't care what they said. You've been completely a good person. You're a great person. Or maybe they said to you, you know, I can see why they would think that something was wrong there, but they don't know you. I'm going to tell you right now, you're a good person. You're all right. You know, by giving a person some form of a true forgiveness, by allowing an outside person that had nothing to do with the inside, for them to say that you're forgiven, you feel a level of forgiveness. You say to them, listen, you know, I wasn't the best parent growing up. And they say, well, if they could only see you now. I don't think you should hold on to that pain. I think you should understand that you are okay. You made a mistake. You can move on. Feeling forgiveness is the ability to relive again. It's the ability to let go of the sadness. It's the ability to let go of the hardships that you endured. I'm telling you right now, there are people you are not willing to forgive because you think that it doesn't keep bitterness in your spirit. The principle of forgiveness is understanding that we forgive to let go of pain. And by letting go of pain, we are free to be fulfilled and filled in love. We are free to have our happiness back. We're free to see ourselves as perfect, beautiful, and unharmed. But when we hold on to the judgmentalness, when we hold on to the pain, when we hold on to the bitterness, we don't forgive, but we don't live. We don't see the celebration of life that allows us to know our spiritual truth. See, I forgive because, not to condone, but because by forgiving, I release myself from the pain. We need to learn the powers of forgiveness. Because once you've forgiven a person, that doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life to do something bad to you again. It doesn't mean anything like that. What it means is that you are no longer making your connection with this person the intersection of your pain, the intersection of your loss of love. Through love, I let go. And when I say I let go through love, what I'm referring to is a love of myself. Makes me have to let go of things that are hurting me. And you know what? When I truly do the things that are right for me, I do right by you. And I do right by the divine. See, because when you hold on to pain, you are hurting yourself. When you are hurting yourself, it's ironic that you would look to another person as being the culprit without understanding how we hurt ourselves by holding on to pain. And you know, by hurting yourself, you cannot heal. We need to be healed in our step towards spiritual enlightenment, spiritual truth. See, there's something called the principle of intention, y'all. See, when you have a principle of intention, you understand that as you think it, so is a man. As you think, so are you as a woman. See, a negative mind creates a negative life. See, we have to understand that we are inspired for greatness before we had awareness of any failures. We were created for the success of love and happiness, of growth and awareness, before we ever endured hardships and pain. We have to understand that no matter what the negative thoughts in our minds are, if we can believe, we can achieve. But we have to move away from the thought that we are not intentional. Everything about you is intention. You think it, you can have it. You think negative and the negative comes. Some of y'all know exactly what I mean. Speak of these things as if they were. Means know that you are the one responsible. You are the one capable. You are the one qualified to create these things in your life. When you want something, believe in yourself. But when you believe in yourself, understand the divinity within you is the you believe in. God rushes through your veins. When you pray, pray in confidence. Thank you, Father. Thank you, God. Thank you, divine. Thank you, spirit. Thank you, whatever words you use, but understand that inside of you is the wealth of that divine opportunity. Inside of you is where the God you pray dwells. Yeah, you better believe it. When you understand the intention of thought, when you understand that you are the only capable power source because the divine that's in you makes it all happen. But we constantly separate ourselves from our divinity. See, we say God is in me, or the divine power is in me. But we don't understand that the God that is in us is the us that's in God, and we are one and the same. See, you don't see your divinity because too often society has taught us to belittle ourselves. See, we think humility is stepping away from the divine. We think humility is saying that power is here and we're down here. We don't understand that being humble is stepping into your divinity and saying that I am humbly equal to you because the same divinity that's in me is the divinity that's in you. And for this reason, we can create that which we could not believe was possible. Some of you have witnessed some real miracles, and these miracles you know are because you believed them. Because you believed in your heart it would happen. When you believe in your heart that something will happen and you do not allow negative thoughts to come in the way, you create this through the power of intention. I really hope we understand the power of intention. You know, because then we can expect it. And when you expect that the best in life is here for you now, not yet to come, but here right now, it brings you full circle. See, the power of expectation tells you that if you are a spiritual being and you are blessed with the divine, created from the divine, breathed through the spirits, when you understand all these things and you let go of any false beliefs that you are anything less than the divine creation, the spiritual manifestation of God right here, right now, living a physical experience, when you realize your DNA's got God all through it, then you have the power of expectation. The power of expectation is to expect that no matter what, the divine power that is in you and all around you will keep you in your best situation. Some of y'all today, you talk to God, and times you talk to God is to tell him what to do. Well, God, you need to do this for me. And God, you need to do that for me. Or God, you need to do that for me. Or some of you immediately talk to God and it's all about that you're not worthy. You know, you're a sinner. You're bad. You should be killed and nothing good should ever happen to you. These are the two extremes that I believe we sometimes falsely put ourselves through. See, when you understand that the Creator that created you and has given you the divine essence of spirit and truth in your veins, when you understand that this is not someone that's here to hurt and punish you, you don't have to start your day off with condemning your every mistake. You could start the day off by thanking God for your existence, by thanking the supreme being, the creator that is, the maker of the ancestors. You can thank for every single opportunity that we see and those we don't. When we can be of a praiseful spirit, when we can see positive when everybody else sees gloom, when we can expect that God is with us, even when other people feel like they're in the darkness, we become that light. We become the light of truth. We become the light of spirit. We become the light to the darkness. This is what I'm trying to talk about today. 7 spiritual principles that allow us to have the ability to walk towards enlightenment every day. And I'll say this again. These 7 principles are, first and foremost, the principle of gratitude. Understanding that our gratitude in earth, our gratitude for all the things that we experience, our gratitude for having this thing called life is not about the physical. It's about the awareness of the spiritual identity that we all possess. Understanding that every single religious practice teaches you that you were not created when you were born and you do not die when you end. This is what reality is. An understanding of your spiritual true self. And that is where gratitude lies. The second thing, the most important thing, is humility. Because with humility is the absence of the ego. Too many of us, when we find ourselves all in our ego, mad about this, angry about that, when we find ourselves in a judgmental state, we find ourselves away from our humility, it's because we're in our egos. The second principle is to remember humility is the removal of our ego from our thought patterns. By understanding in humility that we are all one and that the same God that created us to live and indwell together in happiness. See, why I say this is because it's so important. Humility is removing ourselves from the belief that you and of yourself is something that is greater than your fellow neighbor. You are greatness, but greatness is all around you. This is a major principle The principle of humility allows us the principle of optimism. But optimism is an understanding that the greatness, the specialness, the uniqueness, the miracle that is before you ever step foot into your day. The greatness, the opportunisticness, the optimism of smiles and happiness are based on an awareness that you are from the divine, and that the divine is what the reality tries to take credit for. Practically speaking, you see with your eyes, you smell with your nose, you hear with your hearing, with your ears, but you perceive all these with your spirit. Your spirit can neither be hurt nor problem, can never be in any ways inflicted with pain. Only the physical things that you witness, but the experiencer cannot be harmed. See, this is the optimism of happiness, is realizing that we are of a divine spiritual nature. Be optimistic, but not based on material gain. That's not real, y'all. The principle of generosity, then, is proof that the spiritual is not the material. When we are generous with the material, it's because we are spiritually at a point where we understand that our greatness is not to be muddled up, not to be confused, not to be confounded into the things that we have or the things we wish we had, the accomplishments that we've made, but it's in our ability to understand generosity is a gift of the Spirit. When my spirit is connected to your spirit, it's how I show my love for the divine, my respect for the ancestors. See, we have to understand, and I pray we do, generosity is the richness we give of the Spirit. Any dollars you give somebody, any time you spend in a soup kitchen, any things you do that you feel are creating the kind of generosity you want, understand that it's a generous spirit that gets you towards your enlightenment. Generosity is of the Spirit. And then, of course, the thing to know is the greatest of all generosity is the generosity of forgiveness. Being able to let go of the pain means being able to free other people of their mistakes. We have to understand this because too many of us are holding our identities based on a pain, a wrongdoing, a hardship, a hurt that we're still holding on to. It's not real, y'all. Listen, when I say this, it's not real. What is real? Watch this. Please hear me on this. What is real is an awareness that all of us make mistakes and that we were put here to learn from these mistakes. Some of those mistakes caused pain and hardship to other people. Some of your mistakes that you were tormented yourself for, that you have not forgiven yourself for, has caused pain to other people, including yourself. Forgiveness is the greatest of all generosities because it allows somebody to live again. It allows them to breathe. It allows them to carry on with the experience and the awareness that they learn and a chance to never make that mistake again. I'm telling you, one of the greatest generosities is a generosity of a willing and deep truth in forgiveness. See, I'll say this, the principle of intention, understanding that your intention to do well, to grow, to be well, are all based on your spiritual inclinations of what your worth is, what your mission is, and what your purpose is. See, the principle of intention is understanding all things are manifest through the spirit, but perceived as an action of the physical. When you understand intentional means if you don't know where you want to go, any road will take you there. See, a spiritual intention understands that you move away from your ego and your spirit will show you where to go. You cannot have intention without knowing where the intent comes from. See, to have the principle of intention is to understand spiritually you have a purpose. I ask you to deeply look into your spirit and you will see the principle of intention. What you want to achieve, you will achieve because you were put here for that purpose. You have the power of intent, but we have to move away from the ego and back into the spirit. And within the spirit, you understand the principle of intent is knowing that you were created for this purpose. We must get back to that power within the principle of intention, because then we can experience the principle of expectation. See, when you have the principle of expectation, you have the right to see your life as successful. When you're in doubt, when you lose the sense of purpose, when you tend to give just a false feeling that you are not worthy, you understand the expectation was that you would make mistakes. The expectation was that some things would go wrong. The expectation is that you would lose loved ones. The expectation was that you would have some health issues. The expectation would be that money would come by at some harshities. There would be some friends that let you down. The expectation is that through all these things, you were a spirit intended to rise. Through all these hardships, through all of these down times, through all of these sad experiences, the principle of expectation tells you that through all this, the expectation was that you would learn and be a more powerful being for that purpose. See, these are the 7 principles that help us, that empower us, that enlighten us in our spiritual conquest. Now, these aren't all, but these are the 7 that I basically break down and really give thought to. Because when we look at ourselves, when we look at our lives, when we look at what's going on, we have to rid ourselves of fakeness, of fake beliefs, of misunderstandings, of wrong action. You will never be perfect. As long as you think perfect is doing something that society calls right. Your perfection comes through your mistakes. And your mistakes are experiences. See, we do things and we learn from them. We do things again and we learn whether or not what we learned was true. We are constantly evolving. We're constantly growing. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to hurt people. We're going to feel bad about that hurt. We're going to be hurt by people, and we're going to feel bad about things that people have done to us. But we have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive those who have done things that we could claim were wrong and accept the fact that they made mistakes. Some mistakes they may not even be sorry for, but that's not our concern. Our concern is that we remove the connection to the pain. We remove the feeling of being a victim. We remove the feeling of being under somebody else's power. We've removed the feeling of waking up without a smile because of the pain we've endured and our commitment, our connection, our identities, that we no longer have to connect to our pain. See, this is spiritual enlightenment. I pray that you and I work towards this. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. I ask that you like, I ask that you comment, I ask you to share.